Greetings, fellow time travelers and everyone still stuck on Earth. This is another LinuxCollections.com how-to video for your education, information, and entertainment. Let's get rolling. Today we're going to look at the most popular USB collection. This is a collection of 11 different Linux distributions, all on one 32 gig USB stick. All bootable and ready to run. So this USB comes with Fedora 32 Workstation, Fedora 32 Live Games Spin, the Linux Lite 5.0, LinuxMint 20, the Cinnamon desktop, Manjaro Gnome, Manjaro KDE, MX Linux, openSUSE Leap 15.2 with Gnome and KDE, and then Kubuntu and Ubuntu 20.04 LTS. Alright, before we dig into this USB and look at all of the desktops, we want to give a quick shout out to all our YouTube subscribers. Be sure to subscribe and you too can find out when the next video is available. So when you boot from the USB, you'll see the menu that comes up. This is a Grub Menu, or the Grand Unified Bootloader. And there are a few sub-menu items that talk about the USB and some options. There is a user data partition USB storage, and a lot of effort went in to make sure that each distro would boot from the ISO and had to be carefully configured and optimized. And when you purchase this USB, you'll get the benefit of all that hard work. Let's get going. So we'll start with Fedora 32 Workstation, which is a Gnome Desktop, and you always have the option on the Fedoras to either try or install, and this is similar to many other distros. We're going to go ahead and try. We are running at a faster speed just because we've got a lot of 11 different desktops to get through. You can always pause if you want to check out something in detail. Anyways, this is the built-in applications in Fedora, and this is again a GNOME 3 type desktop. So we're going to pop out of Fedora and we're going to go and check out the Fedora Games. The Fedora Games Spin is from Fedora Labs, and this is an XFCE desktop with menuing system that gives you access to the games all categorized into different groups. So this is just a quick rundown to show you what's there, and then there's the long list of games alphabetically. So this is Fedora Games, something to do on this wonderful little USB, the most popular collection. Moving on, we have Linux Lite 5.0. This is aimed at being easy to use, and it starts off with a disk check, and it zooms through there. We've sped through that, and then you also have the option of using Control-C to bypass that. Once you get into it, you have a desktop and an opening welcome screen. You have all these options, and then you have the menuing system, gives you access to all the built-in applications. Again, aimed at being easy to use. Obviously got the taskbar similar to Windows. So let's get out of Linux Lite and we'll go to LinuxMint. LinuxMint is a popular distribution. It has the Cinnamon desktop is the most popular, again based on getting people used to Windows into the Linux world. So when you boot up into LinuxMint, you'll see a standard desktop with the taskbar at the bottom. Some of the drives are on your desktop, and let's look through the menu and the built-in applications in LinuxMint. Again, we're running this at pretty high speed, so if you do want to look at it closely, you might need to pause your video. So this is a quick look at all the pre-built things in the LinuxMint distribution, and we're going to move on. Next up is Manjaro Gnome. We actually have two Manjaros, Gnome and KDE, so we're going to start off with the Gnome desktop, and we'll again run at a rapidly high speed. Pop up, there's a welcome to Manjaro, which gives you some options to dig into it, and you'll see the ready to go favorites on the left hand side, and then the built-in applications. They actually have some folders for accessories and some of the system tools. So this is what you find with Manjaro. We're going to move on to Manjaro KDE. So KDE is of course the Plasma Desktop, and as we get through the boot up section, we will be dropped into the same welcome screen, but in KDE you'll see your taskbar at the bottom, and then we are actually going very quickly through all the built-in applications in the Manjaro KDE distribution. Note that we are running these at high speeds because we have a lot to cover. We want to keep the video at a reasonable length. It's already going to be about 9 minutes to cover all 11 distributions. Next up is MX Linux, which is a mid-weight, simple, stable desktop OS. It's built on Debian stable, and then it's got a whole community contributing to its ongoing development. Once you get into it, it's going to pop up a welcome screen, and you'll see on the left-hand side, it's got its menuing system. and your favorites along the bar here. So it's a sideways taskbar. You've got your menuing, and we'll run through and show off the various pre-built-in applications that MX Linux has available for you. So we'll hop out of here and continue on our tour. Next up is openSUSE, Gnome, and KDE desktops. So we'll jump into those and give a quick tour of the openSUSE Leap. This is 15.2, and it is essentially the open source version or the community version of the SUSE Enterprise Linux. SUSE has a long history. Goes way back into the 90s when they first started, and they always used to say, have a lot of fun once you got it installed. So they use Yast, which is yet another setup tool. But here you see the Gnome Desktop and their built-in applications available in the Gnome Desktop. You'll note that the different distributions have different sets of packages, and that essentially is what makes up a distribution in terms of the actual desktop and then what they choose to package in as part of the base install. So in the KDE version of Leap, you'll have the Kde Plasma Desktop, and we'll look at the way that's packaged. You may find some slight differences between, say, the GNOME version and the KDE in terms of which packages are actually in them, and that can make a determination, or you need to go through the steps to install it. But we'll walk through the menus here and go in and out, and again, if you need to look in more detail, please pause the video and dig into it. We are running at a faster speed. This is then the quick look at the openSUSE KDE. As we wrap up the menus and finish the quick look here, we're going to now jump into our last couple of distributions, which are the Ubuntu variants that we've got on the most popular, which is Kubuntu, which is the KDE based, and of course Ubuntu, which is the GNOME based. So when you start off Kubuntu, you'll see it goes through a disk check, and we've super speeded this so that we can zoom by it and continue the boot up process to get to the desktop. Again, KDE Plasma, and you have the option of doing the install directly or doing the try, and the live version is what we're showing off, so we're going to just try, which will take us to the Kubuntu KDE desktop. As we've done in the other distributions, we will go through the menus at a relatively quick pace just to show you what packages are in this particular version of the KDE-based Kubuntu. And as we go through, again, the packages are determined by the distribution provider and what and how much space they want to make their final image for the entire distribution. So as we wrap up Kubuntu, we will look at our last option, which is the Ubuntu 20.04 LTS, the long-term support version. So I believe it's 3 years, I think, they have a long-term support version. And at the boot up, you can see there is a disk check again. You can always use Control-C to bypass this, to skip the check. But we sped through that, and we will jump into the Ubuntu GNOME 3 desktop. We have the option to try or install. So we will try Ubuntu. That will drop us to the live desktop. And like the other GNOME 3 type distributions, this has its favorites along the left-hand side, which we will show you the set of applications that are pre-built and available here in Ubuntu 20.04 LTS. So that wraps up our look at the LinuxCollections.com most popular collection on USB, 11 distributions, all available on a 32 gig USB 3.0 flash drive. Thanks for joining us on this journey. This is LinuxCollections.com signing off.